What is ATOMFALL? Well, there's a new dev blog explaining more details about the game, about the world that's been created by Ben Fisher, the head designer at Rebellion, and I've ripped it off effectively to cut out a lot of the talking heads, as gorgeous as Ben I'm sure is, to hopefully give you a quick recap of what kind of feeling they're trying to explain and the gameplay mechanics, but then also deeper dive into the actual gameplay itself. And there's a load here, like when you cut out all the talking heads, there's at least 9 minutes of pure gameplay clips. So, my name's Jade, let's deep dive into ATOMFALL and the latest vlog. Of course, if you don't know what ATOMFALL is, it's going to be a survival action adventure game. It's made by, yes, the same people that brought you Sniper Elite series, and it's going to be coming out on the 27th of March to Game Pass, as well as PlayStation 4 and 5, of course, Xbox Game Pass and PC. Set amidst the first actual nuclear disaster that happened in the 50s in the UK, but obviously with a fictional take on it. People of Windscale, opposite the actual nuclear plant, which I do believe is called Sellafields, have been quarantined for the last 5 years. No access to the outside world, no one getting in or out. I spoke in previous videos how the devs are keen to point out this isn't a Fallout type game, even if it does have some very similar themes. It's got elements of RPG maybe, but it's also got elements of proper survival and exploration and a detective game as you explore mysterious locations, all embellished with a fictional take, of course, on British quaint life with a supernatural twist. It's first person only, obviously something you'll be exploring on your own, and that's a key theme of the game, how they got references for the real village and lots of villages like it of the time. But giving it something more, exploration, having all these types of dungeons and dark and dank areas, and quite frankly scary and unsettling sometimes. The main supernatural element comes in the form of ghouls that you would assume have come of some way, shape or form from the nuclear accident. They did go to location of the town of Windscale and obviously get lots of reference points. And originally the game was meant to be more story-led, where you'd be guided to one point of interest to another. But I decided to actually, you know what, let's scrap that a little bit. Let's just make everything open. So you can go to every single zone in the game. It's not true fully open world by the looks of things. But there are no barriers stopping you from exploring maybe the more peaceful village, as long as you don't piss off any of the army guys that are in charge. To explore in the more wild areas and coming across interesting NPCs perhaps. And overall that's a theme that they get across, that there's loads of story strands and it won't necessarily be given like a good ending or a bad ending by the time you get to the game. It'll be something a bit more murky where you can take away what you want, also of what you found. There isn't a traditional quest system, it's more like clues that will give you an idea of where to go, what to do, but not necessarily always bang, here you go, this is it wrapped up in a nutshell. The world is reactive. If you go ahead and kill every NPC you come across, that does have repercussions, but it might not stop you from progressing, as the game will find ways to present you with the part of the story that you maybe would have got. On the flip side, there will be certain instances where you might not experience the same thing, and they're keen to stress that you will maybe want to replay the game. Taking different approaches for sure in how you explore and what kind of areas you might go to or people you trust in. Suspicion is a big part of the game with the NPCs, not knowing whether to trust you or not, or whether you trust them. So that's a kind of interesting take. He also references it's more like a mini TV show. Perhaps slightly maybe in the structure. I wasn't too clear about that reference, but yes, ATOMFALL is going to be something that you'll be exploring a lot of the open countryside, coming across various different bandit factions. And to my mind, the game looks gorgeous. It's going to be running on Xbox One and PS4, old gen as well. Some people seem to try beating them with a stick over this. I'm glad that the game is getting into hands of more players. 40% of PlayStation Plus players have still got their access to a PS4. Not every game has to be a technological marvel, and I actually think the atmosphere and definitely the environments look pretty cool. Ben is also keen to stress that the game isn't a run and gun game, and I've said this again in other videos. That's why it's not maybe like bombastic as other games like Fallout or traditional sort of shooters. That might be a plus or a negative in some people's eyes. Rebellion are quite known for their gunplay, obviously with the Sniper Elite series. So having a reliance more on melee weapons, or as he describes it, being in a bar fight, literally using your hands more, melee weapons, and even throwing them, because resources, particularly stuff for your guns, might be a little bit lackluster. Although we do know they've said in a previous interview you can customize the experience, you'll be able to change it and adjust, give yourself more resources, make the game obviously easier or harder with the enemies, so that's all good stuff to know. But yeah, you're not necessarily meant to be Rambo going through the corridors of these vaults and stuff, killing every zombie with like 20 guns and a bazooka. It's more slow, it's more deliberate. You'll be utilising gadgets like obviously the metal detector to find extra loot that will give you food and stuff. Still haven't quite explained how that system works. Like, they're calling it a survival game because you've got to scavenge for resources by the most part, and it's more of an open sandbox. But the other, does it like needs? Do we need to eat? Is it just purely to give us health and stuff? If you pay close attention to the UI, you'll actually see you've got the health bar and there's a number, and I just assumed that was just referencing what the health was, or maybe your stamina bar. But it does seem to be pretty much very different at very different times and not really correlating with the actual health bar itself. So maybe that's the actual food bar. I guess we'll have to find out. But the symbol doesn't very much look like that. Anyway, we're going to go into that. Let's start dissecting the actual gameplay clips one by one. So yep, gorgeous setting, set in the north of England. We've got the bard robots as well as the army dudes pretty much holding the centre of the village. So maybe somewhat safe. Are we going to be travelling to the power plant? That's something that I want to find out. Iconic telephone boxes scattered all around the countryside. I'm going to be able to gather certain resources. There's no base building or anything like that, but exploring lots of wreckage and ruins of houses, cottages and villages. The people of Windscale have been here a long time on their own now, so they do forage quite a lot and maybe have found things very tough. But some of these locations look massive in terms of scale and how we're going to be able to maybe explore from beautiful open world to more dank and dark, mysterious places and the traditional sort of Wicker Man. And this looks crazy, like underground castles, or at least some sort of cellar or place that's been taken over with these mushrooms and stuff. So a surprising amount of blue with obviously the streamers and confetti and traps. That's something we'll have to contend with by the looks of things. Quite a few NPCs just roaming around the village as well by the looks of it as well. And again, just more dank shots going into creepy caves and seeing if there's any other stuff we can loot or find. Like when you rack it up, there's at least 10 different, by looks of things, underground locations or dungeons or vaults to go and explore. Are these things we're going to have to really get geared up to go towards? Are they just part of the story? Are some going to be larger? Got like this tunnel here, you can see light at the end, but there's still some of these ghouls to take on, which look pretty formidable. And yeah, as I mentioned earlier, it's all based on real life locations scattered in around the north of the country, as well as the village of Windscale itself. Not seen anything much about having a base though, like how we're going to craft stuff ourselves, other than we did see crafting tab in UI in a few of the other clips. So it doesn't look like you're going to have like a base operations or only certain places to craft. You should hopefully be able to craft anywhere. And yeah, lots of interiors to go and talk to some of these NPCs as well, typical churches and more. And yeah, trying to find out information from NPCs. That seems that's going to be pretty crucial in how you deal with them, what way you treat them. May give you more leads or simply there just to go ahead and barter with. There's no currency in the game. You'll have to give up some of your goods if you want some of theirs until they're pretty much happy with it. What about wildlife dangers? Obviously bats there are getting hit, so clearly something may be dangerous. Using a good bow as stealth, taking on seem to be some sort of, cult faction maybe. And big trespass warning sign across the screen as you're exploring some of these places. It does look like stealth is going to be a key aspect of the game. From literally every clip we're seeing is more or less stealthing or creeping up behind someone. Could be cool as well, the places that we might not be able to access until we get enough clues or find the code to open a door. And yeah, it'll be up to you to answer whether or not you're going to talk to some of these NPCs and trust them. And they may not trust you since you're an outsider, or they may since you're the first new face they've seen in a while. Lots of references to classic 60s, 70s British horror and that type of movie. These guys seem to be worshipping some of these blue boys. And a good few little Easter eggs like gnomes to be found. I hope there's some good quality collectibles that we can have a look at and maybe give us some buffs and stuff. And I know red telephone boxes probably did exist in lots of places. I've never seen so many as I have. Maybe this is like a save point. I'm not too sure, as kind of just ignore it there ringing. But again, like there's loads of clips showing off these in different locations. So maybe a good portion of the actual story is going to be important by going up to these. Or yeah, like I said, simply maybe something that we have to save it. I don't know. Now, there are guns in the game, but they definitely look a bit rusty and well worn, hence why you might need to rely on other stuff. But it does look like it's going to be more improvised crafting and stuff. And I've said before, I want to see more kind of elaborate kind of gear. We've seen axes and maybe daggers and maybe cricket bats, but I hope there's some maybe crazier stuff. Maybe not too crazy like Fallout series, but definitely be cool to see more modifications of weapons and stuff. Hopefully that's in the game too. I'm really intrigued about the idea that you could kill every NPC you come across. Like at the start we see the mask guy in hazmat suit, and then you can actually snap his neck. Are there going to be ways that we can obviously stealth take down these guys without killing them, like a pacifist run? Doesn't look like it, judging by us just going ahead and starting shooting some army dudes. Maybe not the best idea. But this seems kind of wild, the fact that you could just take out every NPC. And I do like the idea of being a bit more vigilant. How we find these leads may give us a bit more clues, or maybe an easier way into somewhere. But yeah, a gun against a melee weapon, obviously you're going to get shot a lot by certain forces like the army maybe, and some of the other clans, other factions might not have as much access. We know the barred robot's going to be probably the biggest challenge that you'll face, as well as environmental triggers and stuff. And are the rats are going to come for us, or the weird fish? And I'm kind of hoping for a puzzle element. We see here in this clip, pulling some levers and maybe hidden behind a door. Is that something you'd only find if you found enough clues? Or is it just a usual case of going into a room and something being pretty highlighted easily? Now this does look like it is in part of the power plant. We're certainly closer. There's also keen to point out that the patterns of NPCs, how they move and stuff, might be a bit different. Like they've got a long route they'll take, but they can be a little bit odd with their routes. So it's not a case of just always knowing exactly where they're going to be at any given time. The melee action looks pretty good. You can seemingly dodge out of the way as you're attacking enemies with good heft and good weapons. And seems to be some sort of block function. Whether or not you go melee or just give them a good kick. As I mentioned, you'll be throwing a lot of stuff perhaps. Ben does mention that the loot is semi-randomised as well at certain stages, or a lot of stages. And does it look like we'll have typical recipes we might have to find, again, judging by some of the other stuff they've spoken about or shown off. So that's cool as well, making it a bit different for sure, giving us a reason to replay it. I've heard some rumours online that the game maybe not be that long, maybe like 12 to 15 hours, but of course I don't know that for sure just yet. And that's okay, I can live with that for sure, as long as the game is enjoyable in that experience and fulfilling, or does offer some replayability. So it doesn't have good and bad endings, but certainly missing out on interactions and the approaches you can take, or storylines that you might have completely missed, that's pretty cool. Also today there are plans being announced for their expansion that they've got coming, the Wicked Isle, and some of their other deluxe editions, which I'll talk about later. Really creepy NPCs there. That guy looked like he was about to turn into one of the ferals, and yeah, a good bit of stealth action. The enemies aren't exactly rushing towards you though. They do look a bit stilted and slow. I guess that's the cannon fodder compared to some of the ghouls or maybe robots. And yeah, finding different parts of loot and stuff, it's going to be important to give yourself the best upgrades you can, or the best gear you can get for taking on multiple. They're keen to stress that you shouldn't really be taking on big groups of players. You've got to weed them out a little bit. Got like the sorting hat room from Harry Potter in here, and we do see some gunplay for sure, with this assault rifle being shot pretty slowly though. Powerful enough to take out these ghouls though in 1 or 2 shots. And I would expect a bit of humour, like it sounds like it's going to be a mysterious kind of thriller type approach to the game, but also they are known for their kind of sense of humour too, so maybe lots of jokes, as I said, lots of Easter eggs to find. Then final few shots, get to see a bit more close up of the barred robots, how we encounter them. I kind of hope we do really need like the best armaments to take these guys on, and not just a case of way-loading them with a bunch of bullets. Maybe they'll have like extra protection. Footage shown off the metal detector, how it's going to reveal stuff that we can hopefully utilise with lots of lunch boxes and loot inside. And a little shot of the barter system, as I said, you'll be giving stuff over, and once it reaches a certain point, then you can make the trade. So super excited for this. Obviously it is coming hot on the heels of Assassin's Creed Shadows, so do worry it's going to be under the radar, but it is going to be on Game Pass, so that's one good thing. It's something that players may be able to dip into at any time. So I'm not a big fan of just this 3-day early access rubbish, just paying up some extra money. Obviously Game Pass, especially Xbox stuff, they want you to do that so they can get some money back since the game's going to be on Game Pass. We saw it with Avowed, and obviously they increased their game to 70, which is a lot of premium prices. ATOMFALL isn't that expensive, maybe reflective of the type of game it is, especially a new IP, and if it really does only have maybe that 15 hours of a first run playthrough. But the prices are a bit odd. You've got like pounds, $42.99 if you go and buy it from Amazon on Xbox or PlayStation. But digitally, yes, I know they do normally cost a bit more, but it's $54.99 on Xbox and PlayStation. And the digital version will include the PS5 and the PS4 version. And then they've got these deluxe editions where you can pay like £74 to get access to what will include at least an expansion pack in the Wicked Isle. Anyone that pre-orders gets the basic supply bundle, which is like 1 loot cache, 1 unique weapon, which just looks like a kind of boring axe to me, and some sort of item recipe. And you only get the enhanced supply, which has a variant of a gun, again some skill manuals to boost your skills, and a metal detector skin if you buy the actual deluxe version, which will give you the 3-day early access. There are also a PC quarantine edition which gives you a free t-shirt plus an art book and a soundtrack and stuff, which does seem pretty cool, and it's not that much more expensive than what you're paying for the deluxe versions on console. So whatever, I don't usually take a good focus on this kind of thing, but I figure the news did get launched today, so I might as well tack it on at the end here. You guys go and check it out on your stores, and obviously whatever region you're in, the prices may be different. So yes, I'm absolutely going to be including this in my road tour of games for sure. Nearer the time, I'm going to be doing lots more preview videos and informational videos you need to know about the game. And with its full launch, expect tons of guides from me. So until next time, hopefully you've enjoyed today's little preview. As I said, go and check out the full dev blog to listen to the dev themselves, and I'll see you ratbags later.